Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SWAN Circulation Advisory Group. Today is November 15th, and we will have this meeting from 9:30 to 11, not PM, AM. Just realized the error there. I will have that updated. Um, hi, I'm Crystal Vella. I'm the chair here for this group. My counterpart is Samantha. Hi, Sam, you want to say hi?
I do. Good morning, everybody.
All right. The first things first is I just want to welcome everybody and welcome especially our newly elected members. Here in no particular order here, we have Melanie Johnson is new to the Circ Advisory Group. Melanie, you want to say hi to everyone and just tell a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Melanie. I'm the Patron Services Manager at the Carroll Stream Public Library.
Great, thank you. Welcome. I didn't see Pam come in, but yeah, okay. Hi, Pam. Pam is also re-elected into the SWAN Circ Advisory Group. Pam, would you like to say hello and just introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Pam Kamen. I'm the Circulation Services Manager at Glenside Public Library.
Great. Thank you. Congratulations. Sandra, do you want to unmute yourself and say a little something?
Hi, good morning. I'm Sandra Leva. I am the Patron Services and Technical Services Manager at the Allsip Library. And I've been working there for almost 16 years.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Sandra, and congratulations. Victoria Morardi.
Hello,
Hey, Victoria.
I work at the River Forest Public Library, and I've been here for I lost count, like 17 or 18 years. It's been a long time.
That's awesome. Victoria, you also run Circ and is what do you call it, like tech or?
I run the Materials Services Department.
Yes, okay, there we go. Okay, and we have last but not least, Peggy.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Peggy Tomzik. I'm the head of library services at Eisenhower Public Library. In addition to being the head of library services, I'm also very active in our makerspace here at the Eisenhower Library.
Awesome. Okay, well, these were just the 5 newly elected members to Circ Advisory. I'd like to thank everyone who self-nominated and put their name in the hat. I know that can be a little bit challenging writing about yourself, but it's always great to hear what everyone's doing and why you want to be a part of the group here. And yeah, we look forward to everyone just getting to hang out for a couple of years here on Circ Advisory and getting to help build out what this next year for us looks like. So welcome everyone. Okay, at this time I'm just gonna walk through the agenda really quick and then we're going to kind of pass the mic, so to speak, here. We're gonna talk about reading history today in Aspen. We have Tara here from SWAN who's going to talk about that. We also are going to talk a little bit about these auto renewals and courtesy notices. If you went to Circ Users Group last month, yes, last month, it's a very similar topic, but our Assistant Director here, Scott, would like to speak to this group as well about that topic. Then Helen's going to talk to us about non-SWAN RB Build patrons. And then I'm going to shut off the recording and we're going to go through that mural board link that I sent everyone this morning. And we're just going to talk freely about the homework that you did and kind of talk through those. And that's why I wanted to get mic checks to make sure everyone has a voice and we can kind of talk through those and discuss those and build those out and see what we might already have and whether that's in documentation or courses, and yeah, we'll just kind of take it from there. So, and this will be kind of ongoing project, so no need to worry about getting through everything today about that. Okay, and then we can talk about some other topics if you want to bring any to the table for next year. This is our last meeting of the year. So I am going to be quiet and I am going to relinquish control to Tara.
Couple slides here. I'm gonna share. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Great. All right, so this should be fairly brief. I wanted to throw out an idea to this group about making some changes to how we manage patron checkout history or reading history. There we go. So here's how checkout history currently works, and it's kind of convoluted since we moved to Aspen. So we started, obviously we had checkout history going in Symphony, and the way that is set is library staff can set the charge history rule. So we recommend in our documentation to set it to no history so that patrons can turn it on themselves. Though I do know that some libraries will turn on that history to all charges to record when the patron registers. So a couple notes: turning on the reading history in Symphony does not turn it on in Aspen, but it does allow Aspen to can talk to Symphony and kind of pull in that existing history. If, say, a staff member turned on the reading history in Symphony, but the patron didn't turn it on in Aspen, so you can have to turn it on in both places for the patron to see it. Another thing to note is that, say a patron had their reading history on, they choose to stop recording it, it will change the setting to no history in Symphony, which is good, but Symphony will retain that previous history from when the charge history rule was set to all charges. So if you're still with me, in Aspen, the way this works is if a patron turns on their checkout history on an Aspen and it was not on in Symphony, it will update the Symphony settings to also record reading history there. If the patron turns it off, it will set Symphony to no history, which, keep in mind, does not delete anything. So if a patron deletes a title, one single title from their history in Aspen, say they had a sensitive title, they didn't want anyone to know they checked out, something like that, it will still exist in Symphony. And if a patron deletes all the titles in their Aspen history, those are all still retained in history if they had their history on. So this is a really long way of saying the very short version is that there's actually no way for a patron right now to truly delete titles from their reading history once it's been turned on in Symphony. So here's a proposal, and I want to get your feedback on this. What if we just used Aspen to manage checkout history and no longer recorded the checkout history in Symphony? The advantage here is patrons would have full control over their reading history. They could turn it on or off themselves. So if it start recording or stop recording, if they delete individual titles or the full history, it's actually deleted. And they can also export their history. So if they ever, wanted to just export it to an Excel file and not have that history, in the cloud somewhere, they would have that option as well. So here, there's one potential downside I can think of if we were to do this, which is that if a patron deletes or turns off their reading history, there's no way to restore it from Symphony. So that's sort of, right now we have this fallback if someone accidentally, just totally wipes out their history and they're like, oh no, I didn't mean to do that. We could bring it back in from Symphony. Whereas sort of the point of allowing Aspen to manage it would be that the patrons could then actually truly delete their history. So yeah, I'm going to stop talking and I'd love to hear from you all
is this a feature that is used a lot by patrons? I'm just not familiar with it being used, um, at least for my community, that I'm aware of.
I think it is pretty popular. That said, I don't know. I don't actually have stats on how many patrons have this on.
Okay. But no, it makes sense to if I understood it correctly. The proposal is to if we do turn it on, just to do it from Aspen versus through Symphony. That way, if a patron wants to like remove any sensitive materials from their history, it's easier to do it from Aspen. Is that what you were long story short?
Yeah, basically saying, you know, we only record that checkout history through Aspen. So essentially once something is, you know, turned in, basically Symphony will only hang on until what a patron is checked out for as long as they've got it checked out, or if there's like a bill on it, that type of thing. But otherwise it wouldn't be linked to their account once they've returned it and it's not on their account anymore.
Oh, okay. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think if it's easier for the patron and it's easier, you know, for them to manage, I say we should go for it. I'm more under like whatever's easier for that, you know, the patron since that's what it's mainly for. But that's my opinion.
Hi, this is Peggy. I kind of feel from a patron confidentiality standpoint, it's better to have one singular list of the reading history. So I think it makes sense to only have it in Aspen and not kind of have like these. If I'm understanding you correctly, Tara, there's kind of like almost two running lists, one in Symphony and one in Aspen. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, Peggy.
I think it's more responsible to only have one list and just have that Aspen list, because I think it's a little more protective of people's privacy. And I think you know, we just need to make whatever effort we can to kind of help patrons understand if you delete your reading history, it really and truly is gone. Once you hit that button and say delete, it's really deleted.
Yeah.
But I think from you know, so often patrons come and go, you know, can you come and tell me what I checked out last week? And I'm like, no, once we check those items in, it's off your record. And that's to protect your privacy. And I kind of feel like not having those dual lists is another way to protect patron privacy.
Yeah, I agree. This is Victoria from River Forest. I think that in terms of patron privacy, this is probably the best and safest option, that they're fully in charge of whether or not they want to keep track of their history. So
This is Stephanie from Batavia. I do have a question about that. If we were to turn it off in Symphony, would that mean that using the SWAN mobile app, they could no longer see their history? Because I know a lot of people use the app and it does record their history if they choose to.
Yes, actually, that would mean that the SWAN mobile app would no longer display checkout history.
Is there a way to see how frequently that's used to see if that's taking something away from patrons?
Yeah, we can definitely see. Let's see, I can pull up some. I think we can see stats Consortium-wide for how many patrons log into the to view those checkouts. So I can take a look at those and maybe just pipe in the chat.
Thank you. I also have just a clarifying question. So if it is, and I totally understand, like we don't want it stored in two places. with it also being stored in Symphony, is there any other way to view it other than through Aspen or through the app? Because I know we can't see on the staff end what their history is, so I know that's good at least. But is there any
Yeah,
other potential for that information to get out somewhere?
as far as things designed to view that, the only places would be Aspen or the Blue Cloud mobile app. It is, I mean, it is available. It is available through web services, so that would be I will say I'm not as familiar with other apps if those could be potentially pulling in the checkout history via web services. So that might be other mobile apps might also not then be able to display the checkout history as well.
Thank you.
I have a technical question that maybe this will have no impact on, but when you use the copy user, it sets it to that other option where there's no option for reading history. So we always have to go in and change it to no history. If we eliminate them, will that also kind of solve that problem? Or do those accounts, will that have an impact on that or no?
I think then that's kind of the next piece. If you all were open to no longer tracking the charge history in Symphony, then we would need to look at how we could update the current settings for patrons that have it on in Symphony. B, could we remove the history that's there? And then C, can we default to no history when creating a user? Or no longer allow that to be updated?
We do have a question in the chat from
Oh.
Marcy from Westmont. What impact might this have in the outreach module? I will have to test on that, Marcy. I do believe that the outreach module has its own recording history within itself. Like you have to be entered as a patron, and then you also have to be entered as an outreach patron to get that reading history tracked. But I can work with Tara and seeing how that might affect
Yeah, that's a really good
outreach
question.
patrons.
It could be that for outreach patrons, you would have to leave the charge history settings.
And that would be they're easily identifiable since everyone who's using that module is has their own profile. So that's good that we kind of have them on their own as well. So we'll definitely have to look into that, Marcy. That's a really good question. Thank you for asking that.
Tara, can I ask a question about the charge history rule? So in your slide, you have currently the way it works is if they turn on their history in Aspen, it updates that charge history rule in their user record and workflows to all charges. If we're going with the proposed turning off of charge history, does that action still happen? I'm just wondering if people will look at a user's record and then get confused, and just making sure I note that in my head. Does my question make sense? Am I speaking into the void? Or did we?
No, I hear
Okay.
you.
Okay,
I
good.
don't know what happened to Tara. It looks like
Oh, maybe she
she
disconnected. Okay.
disconnected.
All right.
Like, I'm
Well,
not
I can
answering this
ask.
question. Goodbye.
I can ask her that separately or when she rejoins.
Okay, awesome. Okay then. Thank you everyone for your thoughtful questions and feedback. And we will do some more testing and let you all know what Tara and the team finds out. Okay, I am going to move on to Scott, who will speak about auto renewals and courtesy notices. Scott, did you have anything to present, or I can just put the
No.
agenda back up?
Yeah, the agenda is fine. Yeah, so hi everyone. Crystal mentioned that this conversation was going to be similar to the one at circulation users. It's actually going to be identical. So if you were at that meeting, apologies for the repeated content. We just wanted to have this same conversation in 3 different places to get sort of as many voices in the room as possible. And so this is the last of those. My question though now is that we've been on message before, what is it, 7 months? I kind of lost track. And at first there was a little bit of feedback about the auto renewal notices going away and, patrons having been used to them or possibly missing them, having maybe questions about, excuse me, sorry about that, about the status of their items, etc. And we also got some feedback the other direction, where, people were glad they were gone. So it was sort of a mixed bag. And we just wanted to check in again after some time has passed to see kind of what you're hearing from your patrons, how they feel, if they've said anything since, in the past couple of months, more recently, and how line staff feel, how you feel about the auto renewal situation. We are in a place where theoretically, we could rebuild the auto renewal notices using a custom report through Symphony that would then go to Unique for processing. We'd have to build it out. So there's also a second half to this that I'm going to reserve comment on until I hear from you, though. So let me know. Is there anything anybody would like to share either in the chat or feel free to unmute and talk out loud?
Hi, this is Emily Foster from Itasca Library. We definitely would like the auto renewal notices to come back. Anytime that we sign up a new patron, we mentioned that we do have automatic renewals, and usually the response is like, okay, well, when will I know when the new due date is? And essentially it's oh, just assume it's renewed unless you get a notice saying it hasn't been. And so it's very much like the auto renewals are a positive notice, like, hey, this is great, your item's renewed, as opposed to getting the notice of, well, these items did not renew, so they are now due. The excuse me, the auto renewals were just really helpful for patrons to manage their account. For some reason, the Itasca user base doesn't seem to be super active on Aspen and checking their account that way. So I know that I would prefer that to get the auto renewal emails back. And I think I know what you're going to say next. And I would still prefer the auto renewal emails to come back.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, this is Trisha from Downers Grove.
Hi.
So yeah, our client base would prefer that also. We get a lot of questions about sort of the same way that the previous speaker was saying, like, how will I know if they're all renewed or not? How will I know? And previously we would say, oh, you'll get a notice that says these items have been auto renewed, or these items are due. So they really appreciated the different notification. Again, I don't think a lot of or all of our client base manages their own accounts online. They usually reach out to us or expect us to provide those notifications to them.
Okay, thank you.
This is Paris from Bentonville. I will also add that we would like the notifications to come back. At first, I was very optimistic and positive, like, oh, we can just push the mobile app and we can push the website and we can push this. And then, no, it's not working at all. I think it's without that notification saying that the items have been renewed, it's kind of like we're losing 2 features. the notification when you know that your items are renewed, but it also makes it seem to the veteran patrons that we no longer have automatic renewal. Like that feature is totally gone because they're
I gotcha.
unaware that it's still happening, but there's no notification of it, and my son does a wonderful job explaining, you can view it this way. The Swan Expo had an awesome, tutorial, like change the verbiage of your message feed. But yeah, it's still not working for my community. And it sounds like Itasca and Elk Grove, or wherever Tracy's from, as well.
Down.
But yeah, Downers Grove, thank
There
you.
it
But
is. Yeah.
yes, we're strongly bringing that back any way possible, just because I think it was a feature that was new and the community like loved it instantly, and then now it's gone, and now it's like it's two features gone. But that's it on my part.
Okay. I appreciate hearing that as well. Yeah. The angle that some folks maybe are thinking the auto renewals have been canceled altogether is not one that I've heard, so I definitely wrote that down. Any further thoughts in any direction?
Hi, this is Melanie from Carol Stream.
Hi.
I don't know, I think we're kind of torn. I think our power users now understand that they're not going to get that notice anymore. But I think, like someone else mentioned, I think when we introduce a new card to somebody, it's a little trickier to explain it. But I also feel like you said, it's been about 7 months and we've sort of fleshed it out with a lot of our patrons. So I don't know, I guess it's a toss up. Um, I think we could live without it, but I obviously understand a lot of the concerns everyone else has. So we did also have people that thought we stopped doing auto renewals because of the notices. So it's something that has come up quite a few times.
Okay.
Hi, this is Sandra from Allstate. So the only thing I've noticed is that we've just received more calls about renewing their items or double checking their due date. And they do reference that they just haven't received an email that stated if the item was extended. And then we've also seen more patrons come in at the desk requesting, the item to be renewed. So it's just a different, an increase of flow of questions. If it comes back, great, because that's a service that we can promote. And if it doesn't, then we can always find a different way to service the patron.
Okay. Sorry, I'm quiet. I'm like frantically typing here. Okay, I appreciate all of that. But I also want to give more people a chance to speak if anybody else has anything to say. And don't worry if you feel like you're repeating what other people have said. I'm trying to get sort of a level of feedback here and not just individual unique thoughts.
Yeah, so anyone feel free to mute yourself. You can also put in the chat if you don't have access to a microphone as well.
And right, since it seems quieted down a little bit, I'll sort of touch on the other half of this. It doesn't mean we can't still collect comments after I keep talking. But so the other kind of piece to this that's come up since the past couple of months is sort of this idea of since auto renewal notices aren't currently in the picture, it kind of opens up some possibilities to examine auto renewals themselves. And one thing that one idea we're throwing around and kind of testing a little bit is the idea of changing the auto renewals themselves into a more frequent occurrence. So right now, auto renewals happen 2 days before an item's due date, of course, and it gets one pass. And if there's a hold on the item, or I guess if there's a hold on the bib record, any item on the bib record, that auto renewal will fail. And kind of that's the end of it. But we have some member staff who've noticed, and some actually even some patrons who figured out, hey, the auto renewal didn't work because there was a hold. That hold gets kind of maybe filled by a different item later in the day. Suddenly the item's free to renew again. And so I know I've certainly done that in the past, just trying a manual renewal later on and finding that it works. So one thought was that we could run auto renewals maybe a few times, starting 3 days before a renewal date. Try it maybe in the afternoon, the next morning, the following afternoon, something like that, to sort of have that opportunity and maybe get more items renewed, rather than have them come back for what ends up being just another trip back to the shelves. So the problem is that that would kind of complicate the auto renewal notification question. And it would be hard to reconcile multiple auto renewal reports with the sort of distribution of accurate, timely notices. So we are sort of just workshopping the idea, and we were wondering if there was any feedback from this crowd. We talked about this at CERC users, of course, as well, on that possibility and whether that would be a factor that would either change your mind about wanting auto renewal notices back, or even without that, I mean, that's a large question to ask and maybe too hard of a question to answer straight off, but just if that's appealing as well. Any thoughts on multiple auto renewal attempts?
This is oh, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I just this is Trisha again from Downers Grove. Yeah, I think maybe running it at least more than, or like, trying the auto renewal that happens at least more than once, because I have had on several occasions patrons that brought an item back and said, it didn't auto renew, but then I check, and at the time that they bring it, they come back in. Now that hold that prevented it from being auto renewed was filled with something else, and so now they can renew it. So maybe that would like minimize those instances from happening.
Yeah, that's kind of the appeal of it.
This is Pam from Glenside Library. I think that the ability to try to auto renew more than once would be a better feature or better service for our patrons compared to enabling that auto renewal notice if it was a choice between one or the other. I kind of agree with Melanie. I'm fairly neutral on like my feelings towards those auto renewal notices. The Glenside community doesn't seem to be really active on Aspen or the mobile app, but I do see it as an opportunity to kind of push people to explore those options. And also, I think new card signups are a great opportunity for that because they're brand new to the library. So introducing those services right off the bat is, I think, a positive, more of a positive experience for them. And like Sandra mentioned, I mean, the discontinuation of the auto renewals, it just kind of changed the way we interact with our patrons. And so it does give more of an opportunity to speak of those other services. And I found that like our patrons are fairly adaptable. So that's a positive thing too. But I think in general, I'm neutral to the auto renewals, but more pro towards the multiple attempts to auto renew if I had to choose one.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm sorry, I didn't actually get to what library are you at, Pam?
Glenside.
Glenside. You did say that. Okay. Thank you. Any further thoughts?
There are some things in the chat here. Let's see. We have Marcy, who's from Westmont, would love to see the notices come back as well. They've had similar experiences with patrons wondering if items have been renewed. Lorena, forgive me, I don't know which library you are from, but our community appreciated those notices and would have commented on how they don't receive them anymore. Parrish says, same here, Trisha, happened recently. Hubble says, I agree with Pam 100%. I think preventing unnecessary auto renewal failures is a better overall feature than restoring auto renewal notices.
Great.
Christine from Bloomingdale also agrees with Pam. Our patrons don't seem to really miss the notices, but multiple attempts would be much more helpful.
Okay. That is really, really good and really helpful to hear. Right. So, feel free to keep typing and feel free to pipe in if you have more to say. But that really is what I wanted to share. And so we're going to have 3 meetings with this conversation in it. We've now had 3 meetings with this conversation in it. So I'm going to go back to our staff. We'll sort of hash this out, talk about some possibilities on both ends with unique management and with our support staff at Cersei Dynex to really explore kind of both these avenues and see what can be done, and hopefully come back with sort of a final plan of action or I don't know, synthesis of this conversation at the very least in the next couple of months. Yeah.
I just had a quick question,
Yeah.
because of course the Rails bins showed up just as you started talking, so I had to go answer the door. What is the timeline for the auto renewal, or excuse me, the multiple attempts?
I'm not sure. We have to kind of work that out. It's all stuff that honestly a good, couple of meetings on our staff for a couple hours could really hash it out and test it properly. So in terms of implementing the thing, it's not necessarily a difficult prospect. But in terms of communicating the thing and allowing folks to kind of adapt and get some communication out, and also for us to really figure out what we want to do and which direction we want to go is the kind of the variable there. And I can't really give you an estimate as to how long that'll be, but hopefully I really want to get this sort of like a lid put on this conversation and get something in place by at least the end of January, kind of in my head.
Oh, sorry. Well, I meant more like when would items try to be renewed automatically, and then when would patrons be notified if they weren't?
Well, oh, I see. The auto renewal repeating. Okay, so yeah, that would be happening in like the 3-day span before an item is due, into like 3 days before an item is due into 2 days before an item is due. And the problem is, of course, that we can't necessarily get the communication piece coordinated with that. So that wouldn't be a part of the package at that point. Unless we can, I mean, I don't really want to say it out loud, but I'm still sort of harboring hope that we can make that work somehow. It's just the logging of these auto renewal results is such that becomes such a strange kind of job of work to try to sort through. But yeah, so as it's standing right now, the multiple attempts would not come with an auto renewal notification. That's why this is a sort of tough decision.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So that was a bit babbly, but yeah, that's this conversation and the other two that if you've been to those, thank you so much for giving us your thoughts, and you will be hearing about this again soon.
Great, thank you. Okay, I am going to stop sharing and I'm going to pass the mic now to Helen, who's going to talk about non-SWAN RB build patrons.
Good morning, everybody. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Hear me okay? Okay, splendid. All right. If you guys were at Fireside 2 weeks ago, I think you got a little taste of this, but I'm just going to go through this again really quickly, a little bit more in depth, since we've had so many questions on this lately, both from SWAN member staff, as well as non-SWAN libraries calling me and finding out, wondering what's going on with this. So I think I'm preaching to the choir here. But I do just need to bang this drum. When you're registering a non-SWAN RB, it is so important to contact that non-SWAN library to check their status. Chicago, you do that online. A lot of other libraries, you just call them directly. But please, please, please verify that standing first. And if they're in good standing with an expiration date greater than a year from today, they can have 1 year from today's date. So if they're in good standing, but then it's less than a year, then they get whatever they have at their home library. You don't ever want to extend privilege beyond what the home library has given them. And of course, if they're expired, or they're blocked, or they're barred, or the card's reported lost, do not register, do not renew, and do not reinstate if that user is blocked or barred, I should say, on our side. Can't say that, I cannot stress that enough. And my computer is not advancing my slides. Here we go. Okay, so what happens when a delinquency in SWAN occurs is just like a SWAN patron, SWAN library patron, they get those courtesy notices, they get the overdue notices at 1 week and 1 week and 2 weeks, and then they get that bill notice at 42 days. So it's, as far as communication goes, it's exactly the same as what SWAN patrons experience. That lost bill is created at 42 days. And the goal obviously is still to have the patron either return the item or pay for the loss before 365 days. Because at that 365-day mark, as you all know, it gets processed by the custom long overdue report. Oops, I went too far. And it's discarded from the system. Lots of non-SWAN libraries, got a big old list here. They get a report from me on a monthly basis of their users who have 1 or more items that have reached that 42-day mark. The goal is for me to let them know that their patron is no longer in good standing at SWAN, and for them to block their patron on their side, encouraging return of our material. We've been growing this list for a number of years now, and I have anecdotally noticed that the non-SWAN invoices have been fewer. So, hooray for communication. So getting back to the timeline, that 1 year passes, the item is processed by the custom long overdue report, it's discarded from the system, and now the patron has to pay for it. I just completely lost my train of thought. Sorry. Some of those non-SWAN libraries, in addition to blocking their patron, they will also contact their patron and let them know that they have SWAN stuff that they need to return. I can't say if all of them do that, but I know quite a few do. So 1 year passes, custom long overdue report runs, items discarded, patron has to pay. At the turn of the quarter, I gather up all of those unpaid those unpaid long overdue bills. And I send an invoice to that non-SWAN library for those losses, and they pay us for those losses. What I do on our side is, because I'm billing the patron's library and they're going to turn around and bill their patron, I clear the bill on the SWAN side and I bar and I note the user's record. So if you see a patron record that is barred with paid long overdue bills, don't assume that the patron paid it. They may now owe at their home library. So it's so important if they have a zero balance, but they're barred and they still carry those notes, to contact that home library again and find out if they have an outstanding balance at their home library now, because effectively that non-SWAN library is buying their patrons' debt from SWAN. It hasn't been necessarily, wiped off of a record, in the universal sense. It had to go somewhere. So make sure to verify, please, 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 please. I've had a lot of non-SWAN libraries contact me recently, finding out why we're continuing to lend to their patrons who have lost items of ours that that library has paid for with an invoice, and then we turn around and start loaning to their patron again. So please, 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 do not reinstate a barred user without re-verification. If a library calls with questions about billing or invoices, refer them to me. They can open up a ticket, or they can call the help desk and refer patron questions to their home library. Yeah, so the clue is going to be looking for that RB Librium as a payment type in the paid bills, because that's a clue that the non-SWAN library, the non-SWAN RB library, has reimbursed us. Yeah, how clever we were with those 10 characters. So read the notes, look for RB Librium in the paid bills, to do a little bit of detective work to see what's going on, and to understand what to do next. So here's an example. This is a Chicago patron who was barred, had notes, was reinstated twice, was still barred was still billed at Chicago, but had no bills, had a zero balance in SWAN because Chicago paid us. So patrons barred, there are notes, open the bills tab, switch to display paid bills. I find sorting by date usually is a huge time saver. And then find those long overdue bills, because only the long overdue bills will have been invoiced to a patron's library. And then where the payment library is SWAN, you know that we've cleared those bills in response to an invoice that we generated. And then you click into the glossary and you can see that payment type of RB Librium. You can see the payment library was SWAN. And you can see that this invoice was sent or was generated on October 2nd. So as soon as that invoice is generated, I have the bills cleared immediately to prevent a situation where the bill exists kind of in two places at once. We don't want that to happen. It's confusing, it's inaccurate, and just any number of other terrible, horrible, no good, very bad things. So yeah, just stay curious, encourage your staff to stay curious, read the notes, look in the glossaries, ask questions, open tickets. I'm happy to answer questions all the time. It's so much easier to answer a question than to fix a problem, or to get pushback from a non-SWAN library for a patron who's delinquent, and we continue to lend to them. So, yep, any questions, email help@swanlibraries.net. And
Helen, this is
yes,
Peggy. May I ask a question?
absolutely.
Okay, so in the case of CPL, because this comes up on a pretty regular basis, when we need to verify, because I'll ask the patron, did you pay CPL for the items that you owe them for? And they of course say yes. Is it enough for me to use the verification tool, and if their card says okay, can I reinstate them, or do I need to call CPL and have a conversation with a staff member?
The verification tool should be real time. The only caveat to that, let me go back to this one. So if that payment date, if that invoice just went out, if they come in on October 3rd, it's
Probably
entirely possible that they haven't received that invoice yet. I don't know how often, the patrons are going to thread that small a needle, but goes back to the importance of looking at the dates.
Right, but like 2021, 2022, things like that. You can, if the verification tool says they're okay, like the circumstance we had this week, the patron had a brand new card. They had a brand new CPL card, and they actually had like an old record with a different CPL barcode. And then when I saw that they had been issued a new card by CPL and they were fine, I assumed that, and she said, oh yes, I paid them for those items. And, she told me the items she had paid. I assumed that that was all okay. But so I didn't call CPL.
No, I think it's reasonable to go by what's in the verification tool.
Right. Okay. Because it was also the evening, and sometimes you call CPL, and I'm not trying to, but sometimes you get somebody that knows what you're talking about.
Yes. Other times not so much, and sometimes they're a little snippy.
Sometimes in the evenings, you might get support staff that isn't quite as familiar with the reimbursement process is during the daytime staff. So, I kind of went with my gut, and I figured if they issued her a new card and her status was okay, it was okay to proceed, especially since it was a couple years out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Peggy, you have great instincts for that. I don't see anything wrong with what you did.
Okay.
And it's, as a best practice, the verification tool is what you go by.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Yep, thank you. Any other questions before I stop talking? Did everybody flee the meeting? That happens. I'm going to stop sharing.
Thanks, Helen.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I am going to, unless anyone has any last minute questions for any of our presenters, it looks like Tara got back in. So Scott's still here and Helen is still here. I'm going to stop the recording. Just give me 1 second here.